Welcome to the second part. Now I'm going to show you how to edit your login.php page to connect to your, we've already connected to the database, but we're going to check our username and password against that in the database. Now, we've already connected to our database, and from refreshing this and resending my username and password, we can establish that there has been no errors, i.e. this error here, and we've seen that if we don't type data, we will get an error. Now, firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a query. If you've used MySQL or any structured query language before, you'll know that you can query a database. I think Microsoft Access has this. So what we're going to do is we're going to say select. In fact, we're going to say select star because we need the ID, the username, and the password. I mean, I don't think we need the ID, but I'll say select star anyway. It will grab all the data. So select star from, and we've called this, let's have a look, users. So select star from users, and here we're going to say where username, which is the name of one of our, if we have a look here, it's the name of this here, and we are going to say where username equals and the username that has been typed. Now, if the username doesn't exist, we need to have some kind of error message to say, hold on a second, that user doesn't exist. So what we need to do is we need to use another function, MySQL function, called MySQL num_rows. So it counts the number of rows that have been retrieved from the query you have given the database. So we're going to say num_rows equals MySQL num_rows, and then in brackets we have the name of our query, or the variable I've stored the query function in. And if we echo out the number of rows, I'll just prove to you and test for myself that we should have 1, because we at the moment have 1 row. If I were to click insert and add another row of data, for example another username and another password, I'll give that a go now, because I'm going to be testing this later on. Let's see, username we're going to say Kyle, and password is going to be 123 this time. Okay, so we can go, and there we are. Oh, hold on a second, where am I? Let's browse for these. There you go. Screen, I can't really work with it. Okay, so we've got Alex, Kyle. We can see the ID has been automatically incremented. We can see both our passwords here and the 2 usernames. So now if we refresh this, you'll be expecting to see, okay, right. The reason this is returned 1, this is the whole part of the check, is that if I was just selecting every user and then counting the row, let's go back here and refresh, and we'll get the value of 2, because there's 2 rows. But if I'm saying select where the username equals my username, we're obviously only selecting where my username exists, and that is in 1 row, because you usually on a website you won't have a duplicate username. Okay, so now that we've got this, what is the purpose of finding out how many rows there are? Now the purpose is that we can say if num_rows is equal to nothing, then that means we can, or rather, if my num_rows doesn't equal nothing, then we can execute the code we need to do, that we need to log in. Otherwise, else we need to echo out, or rather, die again. We need to die that user doesn't exist. So basically what we're doing is we're checking that a row has been returned where we've supplied this username, and if it doesn't equal nothing, we can execute our code to log in. Otherwise we're going to die and say that username doesn't exist, because this will equal 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. So it will equal if it doesn't equal nothing, then it must equal something. But if it does equal something, it will echo this else. So if it's equal to 0, that basically means that no results have been returned. So I'm going to resend this. Actually, let's go back. and let's get rid of our echo none rows. Okay, so let's go back to our main page and we'll log in with Alex and ABC. Password doesn't matter at the moment. Nothing's happened because no errors have been returned. If I use, for example, Billy and type a password in, log in, that user doesn't exist because no rows that have the username equal to Billy have been returned. So we can see that that's working. I'll go back to my original thing. So Alex, and my password is ABC. Okay. Now the code to log in. What we need to do to log in is we need to perform a password check. So to grab the password, I'm going to use a function. Sorry, not a function. I'm going to use a loop, and that is going to be the while loop. And what I'm going to say is I need a variable name. I'm going to say row, and that is equal to MySQL. That is equal to MySQL fetches a row as an array. Okay, so I'm going to say MySQL fetch ASOC for short, and inside this is going to be my query. Okay, so I've got my query there from this, and we're fetching each column data from here and putting it into an array called row. Okay, so obviously with a while loop we're going to have our brackets, and now we're going to set some variables. So I'm going to say db username, which is the username that I'm going to extract from the database, is equal to the row, and this is the row name, so username. So as we can see here, this is the row name. If this is an array of the data, then each of these, this is going to be ID, username and password. We're not using 0, 1, 2, although I'm not sure that does work. So for now we'll keep it simple and we'll directly reference the name of our column. So the database username is going to be row and that, since this is an array due to this function on our query. Okay, and our, you can guess we're going to say a db password equals a row and then our password. Okay, so after this what we could do is say echo out, in fact no, we don't need to echo out our contents of our db username and password unless we're running into errors, because we already know what they are, we've seen into the database. Now what we're going to do is we're going to perform a check. So check to see if they match. Okay, and to do this it's very simple, using an if statement. If our username equals our db username, okay, and our password is equal to our db password, okay, we're going to say it's correct, okay, and then otherwise we're going to say it's incorrect. In fact, for this I'm only going to need one line, so incorrect password. Okay, in fact yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so here we're going to say echo you're in. Okay, let's go back here and we'll test this just before I end this part of the video. I'm going to say first Alex, and I'm going to put a long password in, incorrect password, and for now I'm going to put ABC and you're in. Okay, so we've checked our username exists, we've checked both fields exist, so please enter a username and password. If we enter a username and a wrong password, we get an error message, incorrect password. If we enter the correct password, we get you're in, and if we enter a username that is not found, we retrieve an error message saying oh sorry, and a username that's not found, we say that the user doesn't exist. Okay, so join me in the next part and I'll show you how to create your sessions and your logout page. See you there.